Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sound Design Lab. I'm your host, Jacobo, and today I have a more comprehensive tutorial for you guys because not only do I want to just show you the sound and how to make the sounds that I'm making today, but I want to show you many different ways that you can change it in order to get a wide variety of different sounds out of this bass style for your music. And without further ado, this is what they sound like. And then there's another one I made. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're gonna go ahead and just add a new instance of Serum. I'm gonna make it a little bigger for you guys. Move it over here. We don't need this anymore. Let's see if we're... All right, we're on it. So we're gonna go ahead and throw on for this first bass, the basic shapes. And then we're gonna go ahead and turn on our oscillator B and throw it into distortion 8-bit. Whap, well, bam. So we actually got a lot going on for this one. For the first time in one of my tutorials, we're gonna go ahead and make an envelope. So we're gonna go ahead and we can take the tack all the way down. And we want the decay to be at about 728 milliseconds. And then let's go ahead and just throw that sustain all the way down. And that's gonna be our envelope. And the reason why we're making this envelope is because when the sound changes through the automation, the modulation we're gonna do with this, we want when the note is finished, or the movement is finished, we want it to stay where it is so that it doesn't like come back, or we could do that as well with a envelope right here, but we're just gonna do it over here because I just found it way easier to just bink bink and we're done. So first thing we're gonna do is turn off the randomness of both our oscillators. Let's not forget to do that because that'll be useful later when we start to do unison. We're going to knock up the octave of oscillator B, and then we're gonna go ahead and turn the level off. So now we can start getting into our, we're gonna make one LFO, and by the looks of it, this is actually all we need to do. And all I did to change the LFO 1 is just put this on 1/8. And honestly, it doesn't even really matter otherwise because we have everything we need for this. Then we're gonna go ahead and crank up the level of oscillator A, and I apologize if I'm doing things a little out of order. Just try to follow, and that's all I can kind of recommend. And after that, we're gonna go ahead and turn our FM from B on, but we're actually not gonna be putting anything on it. We're just gonna go ahead and crank it to 45. And let's go ahead and just give this sound a listen. It's just a normal sound right now. So now this is where things get pretty intense, is we're gonna start using, in order to get the crazy like fluctuation in noise that we're looking for this bass, we're gonna go ahead and turn on sync. And sync is, yeah, listen to that. So if we want to be exact on where I put it, it's 2.9. So now that we have this, now we want to try to do things to kind of mix it up and make it a lot better. So one of the first things that I did was I turned on low 24 in your filters. And then I actually took my envelope and I make sure that bring all the way over here, all the way down. And what this does is we can actually get rid of the resonance because I don't want that initial change in timbre as it goes across. And there we go. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and go into our effects, but we're not actually done here. We're gonna do a couple more things here, but I wanna just go into our effects in order to really show how we can change the sound. And throw on our distortion, and normally I use tube distortion, but for this I noticed that throwing it on DO2 and throwing it on 60% really beefed it up. Yeah, really beefed it up there. So to clean it up a bit, I turned on the flanger, I brought the rate down, I brought the depth actually from 100 to like 96%, just a tiny bit. It was a little subtle change. Take the feed down off, and that kind of just takes some of the higher frequencies. Kind of just shifts it a little bit on the stereo field a tiny bit. I don't know. It felt a little better to me. I'm not sure what the technical happenings behind that was, but it just sounded. Most of what I do on here is just to make it sound good, you know, even if I don't really understand 100% what I'm doing. And then I went into the phaser and went ahead and turned the rate down, put the depth on 70, and the frequency is about the exact one that I have is 3286. You can get around there, but I'm being exact just for the sake of helping you get the exact sound. Feedback to 90, so that's gonna create a lot of ringing. So the phase is the same, but what I've done is I took the LFO that I created and I threw it on the mix so that it brings that ringing in, but on a wobble, in order to try and get a little bit more movement out of it. And that really helped kind of bring it together. Next, I have my little filter, and it's kind of the same concept. I left it on the MG low 6, and then I brought this up to about 4,100, about right here, 4,137, and then same thing, I just put the LFO on there, and just got a tiny bit more movement out of it. It's not much, but it's just everything that kind of counts. So that's a pretty good amount of movement, but if you wanted just a little bit more, and we can throw it on trigger, we can go ahead and go to this and throw it on our fine tuning, and then we can bring our fine tuning down to about 20 on both oscillators. Just adds a little bit more movement. And one other thing that we can do is we can actually crank up our unison to 3, and you'll notice that when we have it on 3, you have your sound in the middle, and then it has 2 equal. So if we have it on 2, it splits the sound between 2 channels that are detuned between each other. You might know this already, but I just want you to, in case you don't, just have a visual understanding of what's actually happening to your sound. And 3. So if we turn up the detune and then bring the blend just to a subtle 20, we get a much wider sound. But you might like it a little bit more like crispy, you know? So you might like that a little bit more. So that kind of wraps it up for this sound. You have other options, like you can go into noise if you wanted to mix it up even more. Go into the organics and throw on like the breath, and then you can take your envelope and just put it right here and bring it down, and then when you I'd kind of direct it out. Or if you wanted to make it wobble, you can use your LFO instead. So for this sound, we're pretty much done. So I want to go ahead and get into my other sound that I created, which is this one. Super crunchy, super a different take on PEEKABOO's music. And for this sound, I'm actually going to be going into the same exact patch because I want to use this as an opportunity to show you how I've changed up the sound in order to get this new one. So for instance, the sync knob doesn't change a lot for this next sound, but you'll notice that the sync knob is the primary way for you to change the timbre to a completely new characteristic. So if you want to use the same bass but change up, like let's say a B part for your song, just crank up that sync and you're good to go. So pretty much all I did in order to make this sound was just change up the oscillators. So for this I used Squelchy 1, and I put the wavetable position all the way over. And then I cranked up the oscillator to 3 on oscillator B, and I used Genji, and I put the wavetable position on 49. And then. So already you have that cool sound, and it works really well with the H breath right there, and along with the phaser effect that I used before. I don't think I actually have any other changes besides maybe adding a little bit of high in the EQ. Same deal, you can just get different timbres and mess with the oscillators. And one other thing that I did, and let's go ahead and move this back to the basic shapes. Let's see here, to the other sound that I had. So I'll just show you how easy it is to kind of go between the different things you make. And I recommend, you know, finding different spots for the knobs and saving at every turn, and just kind of organizing your sounds in general is always kind of good to do. So right here. Something else that I did was I went into the piano roll and I turned on the mono right here for the voicing, and then I cranked the Portamento to 582, around there. And you'll notice that I have these notes right here. Go ahead and transfer them over to our sound that we made. And it simply just kind of starts from a lower note. So I've been playing on the D sharp 2 for all the notes, but I start initially at the C2. And what that does is, let me mute this real quick because that was my sample or my template for this is, let's see here. It starts from a lower note and then just kind of immediately climbs up to the D2, and that just adds even more movement. So that kind of just wraps up the sound in general. You can mess around with the oscillators, you can mess around with pretty much everything with the sound and get these really cool drawn out basses that utilize the sync, the FM from B, and the DO2 distortion, which just beefs it up. And you can play around with different, you know, phaser feedback effects. You can throw a chorus on there. You can throw another filter. So even though like we have a little bit of movement right here, you can go into all sorts of different things. I haven't really tried anything, so I don't want to now because it's going to sound like garbage maybe. Combs filter, always good for getting insane frequencies out of your bass. So you could go ahead and go through the combs and try different things. We might, you know what, let's go for it. Sounds like garbage, so it's because we have this right here. Move that. So that's pretty cool. Trying to get. So you can get some really interesting noises out of there, and you can throw your LFO on the resonance to get some really, really cool harmonics that wobble and make the movement even greater. That's really cool. So yeah, that wraps it up for this video. One more thing that I did want to mention that I think is kind of important is to shout out Rocket Powered Sound. I've been wanting to make this particular bass tutorial for a while, but I did notice that just recently in his last video, he posted up a sound that uses very similar methods to achieve the same style of bass. And I just kind of wanted to give him a shout out, and I'll leave his link in the description because I kind of feel bad making a tutorial so close to his that has the very, very similar style of noise. So if you're watching this, Shane, love you and I love your videos, and I hope that this continues to bring people to a better understanding of Serum. So thank you so much for watching. Just drop a like and comment if you have anything to say, and by all means subscribe because it makes a difference. Thank you so much, and I'll be posting more sounds soon. Have a great day.